Some moments in life are like lightning strikes. They happen in a flash, but the fire they ignite burns forever. For Leah Walker, that moment came on a warm Friday night in Brooklyn, when her lips touched a stranger's and set her entire world ablaze. Leah was 27, ambitious, and careful. Too careful, her friends always said. She calculated every move, weighed every risk, lived life like it was a spreadsheet that needed balancing. But tonight, surrounded by her three closest friends in a dimly lit bar with jazz music floating through the air, something felt different. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the exhaustion from another 70-hour work week. Or maybe it was just time for her to finally break free from the cage she'd built around herself. The dare came from Claire, as it always did. Claire was the wild one, the friend who pushed boundaries and refused to apologize for it. She leaned across the table, eyes sparkling with mischief, and pointed toward the entrance. The next man who walks through that door, you kiss him. No thinking, no planning. Just pure impulse. Leah's heart hammered in her chest. Every logical part of her brain screamed no. But there was another voice, quieter but growing louder, whispering yes. When was the last time she'd done something truly spontaneous? When had she last felt her pulse race with excitement instead of anxiety? And then he walked in. Time didn't stop. It exploded. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with shoulders that filled his perfectly tailored dark suit like it was designed specifically for his body. His face was all sharp angles and defined lines, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or in boardrooms where million-dollar deals were made. But it was his eyes that stole her breath. Gray like storm clouds, cold and calculating, sweeping across the room as if cataloging every detail, every weakness, every opportunity. Leah stood before she could talk herself out of it. Her legs trembled as she crossed the bar floor, each step feeling like she was walking toward the edge of a cliff. She could feel her friends watching, could feel the weight of the dare pressing against her back. But more than that, she felt something else. A pull. An electric current in the air between her and this stranger that grew stronger with every step. He was looking at his phone when she reached him, his expression one of subtle irritation. The light from the screen cast shadows across his face, making him look even more intimidating. For a heartbeat, she almost turned back. But then he looked up, and their eyes met, and the world tilted on its axis. Leah didn't give herself time to think. She reached out, touched his shoulder, feeling the expensive fabric of his suit beneath her fingers. He turned fully toward her, one eyebrow slightly raised in silent question. Without another second of hesitation, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was fire and ice colliding. His lips were firm, warm, tasting faintly of mint. For one eternal second, he didn't move. Didn't kiss her back, but didn't pull away either. He just stood there, perfectly still, as if he was deciding whether she was worth his attention. And then she felt it. A subtle shift. His lips moved, just barely, as if considering returning the kiss. His hand rose, she could feel it in the air between them, hovering near her waist but stopping just short of contact. When Leah finally pulled away, her entire body was trembling. His gray eyes were still locked on hers, but something had changed. There was interest there now, curiosity, and maybe something darker. Something that made her skin burn and her breath catch. She whispered an apology, mumbled something about a dare, and fled back to her table on shaking legs. But even as her friends exploded in celebration around her, all she could feel was the phantom heat of his almost response. All she could see were those storm-gray eyes watching her with an intensity that promised this wasn't over. When she glanced back one last time, he was still there. Still watching. And the look in his eyes made her shiver with something that felt dangerously close to desire mixed with dread. She didn't know his name. Didn't know anything about him except the way his lips felt against hers and the way his eyes seemed to see straight through every wall she'd ever built. But somehow, in the deepest part of her soul, she knew this stranger would change everything. What Leah didn't know what she couldn't possibly have known as she laughed with her friends and tried to forget the electric current still buzzing through her veins, was that Monday morning would bring a revelation that would turn her carefully constructed world completely upside down. The stranger wasn't just a stranger. He was her future. Her challenge. Her undoing. And by the time she learned his name, it would already be too late to run. The presentation that afternoon should have been Maya's triumph. The board members loved the waterfront project. They asked intelligent questions, nodded approvingly at her answers, and by the end of the 2-hour meeting, 3 of them had personally congratulated her on visionary work. But Maya barely heard any of it. Her mind was stuck in that moment before the meeting, when Dominic Sterling had stood close enough for her to count his heartbeats and told her she was never standard. "You were never standard, Maya Chen. I just failed to notice." What did that mean? Had he noticed her now? Or was it just a polite comment from a boss acknowledging good work? Maya had spent 3 years learning to read Dominic's micro-expressions, the tiny shifts in his face that revealed what his words never would. But this morning, she'd seen something entirely new. Something that looked almost like regret. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Maya returned to her smaller office on the 37th floor, tried to focus on other projects, and failed miserably. Her business partner, Sophie, noticed immediately. "You look like someone who just got hit by a truck and isn't sure if they should call an ambulance or buy a lottery ticket." Sophie perched on the edge of Maya's desk, her red hair catching the afternoon light. "What happened?" Maya hesitated. Sophie was her best friend, had been since architecture school, and she knew about Maya's impossible feelings for Dominic Sterling. She'd listened to years of late-night confessions and gently encouraged Maya to either make a move or move on. Maya had done neither. "He noticed me today." Sophie's eyebrows shot up. "Noticed you? Like actually noticed you, or just acknowledged your existence?" "I don't know." Maya dropped her head into her hands. "He said things. Strange things. And he looked at me differently." "Strange how? What did he say?" Maya recounted the morning conversation, watching Sophie's expression shift from curious to shocked to something that looked almost like concern. "Maya, honey," Sophie said carefully, "are you sure you didn't misread the situation? Dominic Sterling doesn't do personal. Everyone knows that." "I know what I saw, Sophie. For a moment, he was different. Real." And then his assistant interrupted and he went back to being the Ice King? Maya nodded miserably. "Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I wanted it so badly that I convinced myself something was there." Sophie squeezed her hand. "Or maybe something actually shifted. Maybe he finally pulled his head out of his empire long enough to see what's been right in front of him for 3 years. And if he did? What then?" Maya looked at her friend desperately. "He's Dominic Sterling. I'm just the architect who works for him. This isn't some fairy tale where the billionaire falls for the regular girl. First of all, you're not regular. You're extraordinary. Second, stranger things have happened." Sophie stood up, smoothing her skirt. "My advice? Don't overthink it. Just see what happens next." But nothing happened next. Not that day, not the day after. By Friday, Maya had convinced herself she'd imagined the entire moment. Dominic hadn't called her. Hadn't stopped by her office. Hadn't done anything to suggest that brief flash of warmth had been real. She was back to being invisible, and the disappointment tasted bitter. Friday evening, Maya stayed late to finish drawings for a renovation project. The building grew quiet as employees filtered out, heading home to families and weekend plans and lives that didn't revolve around unrequited feelings. By 8 o'clock, Maya was alone on her floor, or so she thought. The knock on her office door made her jump. She looked up to find Dominic Sterling standing in her doorway, his suit jacket gone, his tie loosened, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that had no business being that distracting. "Working late?" His voice was casual, but there was something underneath it, something that made Maya's pulse quicken. "Just finishing up some drawings." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. What are you still doing here? Couldn't focus. Dominic stepped into her office, his eyes scanning the space as if seeing it for the first time. The walls were covered with sketches and inspiration photos. Her desk was organized chaos, coffee cups and pencils and architectural models in various stages of completion. This is where you work? Most days, yes. Maya felt suddenly self-conscious about the personal touches, the little glimpses into who she was beyond her professional persona. It's different from what I expected. He picked up a small model from her shelf, a miniature version of an impossible building that curved like a wave. You made this? Years ago. Architecture school project. It's beautiful. Dominic turned the model in his hands with surprising gentleness. You wanted to build something that had never been built before, even then. Maya stood up, her body moving before her brain could stop it. She crossed to where he stood, close enough to see the tiredness in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. Mr. Sterling, why are you really here? Dominic set down the model carefully, then turned to face her. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. I owe you an apology. For what? For 3 years of not seeing you. For reducing your talent to safe projects because I was too blind to recognize what you were capable of. For making you think you had to hide your brilliance to fit into my world. Maya's breath caught. You don't need to apologize for that. Yes, I do. Dominic took a step closer. After I saw your waterfront presentation, I went back and reviewed every project you've worked on for me. Every single one. And I realized something. What? You've been dimming your light for me. All those standard, safe designs, they weren't you. They were what you thought I wanted. And I hate that I made you feel like you had to be less than you are. Tears pricked at Maya's eyes. She blinked them back furiously. I made those choices. You didn't force me. Didn't I? Dominic's gray eyes were intense, searching her face. I created an environment where innovation felt risky. Where showing your true capability seemed dangerous. That's on me, Maya. Why does it matter now? The question came out more wounded than she intended. Why do you suddenly care? Because I can't stop thinking about what I almost missed. Dominic ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I've spent 15 years building this company. I've sacrificed everything for it. Relationships, friendships, any semblance of a normal life. I convinced myself it was worth it, that the empire mattered more than anything else. And now? Now I'm looking at a woman who's been extraordinary this entire time, and I almost never noticed. His voice dropped lower. What else have I missed, Maya? What else has been right in front of me while I've been too busy staring at spreadsheets and acquisition deals? Maya couldn't speak. 3 years of locked-away feelings were rising up, threatening to spill out in words she could never take back. Dominic took another step closer. They were inches apart now, close enough that Maya could feel the heat radiating from his body. Tell me I'm not imagining this. Imagining what? This pull between us. This feeling like the ground shifts every time you walk into a room. Tell me you feel it too. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. She should step back. Should maintain professional distance. Should protect herself from the inevitable hurt that came from wanting someone this impossible. Instead, she told the truth. I've felt it for 3 years. Something flashed in Dominic's eyes, surprise mixed with something darker, something that looked like desire. 3 years, he repeated. And I never knew. You never looked. I'm looking now. His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek with devastating gentleness. And I can't believe what an idiot I've been. The touch sent electricity through Maya's entire body. She leaned into it without meaning to, her eyes fluttering closed for just a moment. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. Probably the worst I've ever had. Dominic's thumb traced along her jawline. His other hand found her waist, pulling her incrementally closer. But I stopped caring about good ideas around the time I realized I couldn't remember what my life looked like before you were in it. We work together. It's unprofessional. I'll fire myself if I have to. Maya laughed, a breathless sound that was half disbelief. You can't fire yourself. You own the company. Then I'll fire you. His forehead touched hers, their breaths mingling. We'll figure it out, Maya. Whatever the complications are, we'll handle them. You don't even know me. Not really. Then let me learn. Give me a chance to know the woman behind those brilliant designs. Let me discover what makes you laugh, what keeps you up at night, what you dream about when you think no one's watching. Maya's resistance was crumbling like a sandcastle against the tide. Every rational thought told her this was dangerous, that Dominic Sterling would break her heart without even meaning to. But every other part of her, the part that had been waiting and hoping and dreaming for 3 years, didn't care about rational anymore. One chance, she said, her voice barely audible. You get one chance, Dominic Sterling. And if you disappear back into your empire and forget about this moment, I won't wait around hoping you'll look up again. I won't forget. His voice was fierce, certain. I promise you, Maya Chen, I won't forget. Then prove it. The words were barely out of her mouth before Dominic closed the distance between them. His lips captured hers in a kiss that erased every doubt, every fear, every lonely night of the past 3 years. It was soft and demanding all at once, a question and an answer, a beginning disguised as an ending. Maya's hands found their way to his chest, feeling his heart racing as fast as her own. Dominic's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. The kiss deepened, turning hungry, desperate, 3 years of denied attraction combusting into something neither of them could control. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maya's world had completely rearranged itself. Everything looked different now, sharper and brighter and terrifyingly real. Dominic rested his forehead against hers again, his eyes closed. I'm not good at this, he admitted. At relationships, at opening up, at being anything other than the man in the boardroom. Then we'll learn together. You're sure? Because once we cross this line, Maya, I won't be able to go back. I won't be able to pretend I don't feel this. She smiled, reaching up to touch his face. I've already crossed it. 3 years ago, the first time you listened to me present an idea like it mattered. I've been on this side of the line alone for a long time. Not anymore. Dominic kissed her again, softer this time, a promise instead of a question. Never again. And standing there in her small office with the city lights glittering below them and the weekend stretching ahead full of possibility, Maya Chen finally felt seen. When the billionaire finally looked up, Part 3. The weekend changed everything and nothing at all. Maya spent Saturday and Sunday discovering who Dominic Sterling was when he wasn't being the untouchable billionaire. She learned that he made terrible coffee but insisted on trying. That he had a scar on his left shoulder from a childhood accident he rarely talked about. That he'd lost his mother when he was 16 and built his empire partly to honor her memory, partly to prove something to a father who never believed in him. She learned that beneath the ice, there was a man who'd forgotten how to be warm because warmth meant vulnerability, and vulnerability felt like weakness in the world he'd built. They talked for hours in her apartment, something small and cozy that probably fit inside his penthouse living room 3 times over. Dominic looked out of place among her mismatched furniture and walls covered in architectural sketches, but he also looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. He told her about the loneliness of success, how every friendship felt transactional, every relationship felt like a potential liability. Maya told him about growing up as the daughter of immigrants who'd sacrificed everything so she could chase impossible dreams, about the weight of making their struggles worth something, about building monuments to beauty in a world that often felt too hard and too cold. When Monday morning arrived, reality crashed back in with uncomfortable force. They'd agreed to keep things private at work, at least until they figured out what this was and how to navigate it. But keeping distance from Dominic Sterling after finally having him proved harder than Maya ever imagined. Every meeting was torture. Every accidental brush of hands in the hallway sent electricity through her body. Every moment she had to call him Mr. Sterling in front of others felt like a lie. Sophie noticed immediately. "You're glowing," she said Tuesday afternoon, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Something happened this weekend." Maya tried to hide her smile and failed completely. "Maybe. Maya Chen, if you don't tell me everything right now, I'm going to scream in this very professional office." So Maya told her. Everything. The late-night conversation, the kiss, the weekend that felt like stepping into a different world. Sophie listened with growing amazement, then grabbed Maya's hands. "I'm happy for you," she said, but her expression turned serious. "But be careful, okay? Men like Dominic Sterling, they're used to getting what they want. Make sure he sees you as a partner, not just another thing to acquire." The words stayed with Maya, creating a small seed of doubt that grew over the following days. Because the truth was, their relationship existed in stolen moments. A text message late at night. A brief touch when no one was looking. Quick kisses in empty conference rooms. It felt thrilling and secret and also somehow wrong, like she was hiding again, dimming her light in a different way. The breaking point came 2 weeks after that first kiss. Maya had been invited to speak at an architecture conference in New York, a huge honor that would put her work in front of industry leaders. She'd been excited, had spent days preparing her presentation. But the conference fell on the same weekend as the quarterly board meeting, and Dominic needed her there to present the waterfront project updates. "I can't miss this conference," Maya said, standing in his office late Thursday evening. "This is important for my career." "The board meeting is important for the project," Dominic countered, his voice taking on that CEO tone she hated. "Your project. Don't you want to be there to defend it?" "Of course I do, but this conference only happens once a year. I've already committed to speaking." "So uncommit." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I need you here, Maya." Something inside her snapped. "You need me, or you need my work? Because lately, I can't tell the difference." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Maya's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "We've been together for 2 weeks, and in that time, you've cancelled 3 dates because of work emergencies. You won't acknowledge me as anything more than a contractor in front of your staff. And now you're asking me to sacrifice my career advancement for your convenience. It's not about convenience. It's about the project." "No, Dominic. It's about control. It's about you being so used to people rearranging their lives around yours that you can't even see when you're doing it." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and painful. Dominic's expression shifted through several emotions before landing on something that looked like hurt. "Is that what you think? That I'm trying to control you?" Maya's anger deflated slightly. She moved closer, her voice softer but no less firm. "I think you're used to running an empire where everyone says yes. But I'm not your employee in this relationship, Dominic. I'm supposed to be your equal. You are my equal. Then treat me like one. Let me go to this conference without making me feel guilty about it. Trust that the board meeting will be fine without me there. Show me that you value my dreams as much as I'm learning to value yours." Dominic was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching her face. Finally, he nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry. Go to your conference." "Just like that? Just like that?" He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. "I'm new at this, Maya. At caring about someone more than the next deal. At having something in my life that matters as much as the empire I've built. I'm going to mess up sometimes. We both will." Maya rested her head against his chest, hearing his heartbeat steady and strong. "But we have to promise to call each other out when we do. No hiding, no pretending things are fine when they're not. Deal?" Dominic tilted her chin up, his gray eyes intense. "I mean it, Maya. You make me want to be better. Not just as a businessman, but as a person. I haven't felt that in a very long time. The conference in New York was everything Maya hoped it would be. She gave her presentation to a packed room, received enthusiastic responses, and made connections that would shape her career for years to come. But the best part came on Saturday evening when she returned to her hotel room exhausted and exhilarated. There was a knock on her door. When she opened it, Dominic Sterling stood there with an overnight bag and a sheepish smile. "I finished the board meeting early," he said. "Thought I'd surprise you. If that's okay." Maya pulled him inside, her heart full in a way she'd never experienced before. "You flew to New York just to see me?" "I wanted to hear about your day. About your presentation. About all the brilliant things you said that made people realize what I've known for weeks now." "What's that?" "That you're going to change the world, Maya Chen. One beautiful building at a time." They spent the rest of the weekend exploring New York together, not as CEO and contractor, but simply as Dominic and Maya. He held her hand in public. Introduced her as my girlfriend to a business acquaintance they ran into. Listened with genuine interest as she talked about architecture philosophy and her dreams for future projects. And Maya realized something profound. This was what partnership felt like. Not hiding, not dimming, not making yourself smaller to fit into someone else's world. But expanding together, making room for both dreams, both ambitions, both hearts. On the flight back to Chicago Sunday night, Maya leaned her head on Dominic's shoulder. "Can I tell you something? Anything. I almost didn't take this job 3 years ago. I had another offer, actually a better salary, more creative freedom. But something made me choose Sterling Properties instead." "What made you choose it?" "I saw you give a speech at a business forum. You talked about building structures that would outlast us, about creating beauty that would inspire generations. And I thought, that's someone who understands why architecture matters. That's someone I want to build things with." Dominic was quiet, then he kissed the top of her head gently. "I'm glad you did. Even if it took me 3 years too long to notice. Maybe it took exactly as long as it needed to." Maya intertwined her fingers with his. "Maybe we both had to become the right versions of ourselves before we could find each other." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You were just too busy with spreadsheets to notice." He laughed, that rare, genuine sound that Maya was learning to treasure. Fair point. The weeks that followed brought their own challenges. There were whispers in the office when Dominic started stopping by Maya's desk more frequently. Raised eyebrows when he defended her ideas in meetings with unusual passion. But there were also beautiful moments. Working late together on the waterfront project, their professional respect deepening into something even more valuable. Creating a partnership where both could be brilliant without competition. Learning that love didn't mean losing yourself, it meant finding someone who made you want to become the fullest version of who you could be. One evening, 6 weeks after that first kiss, Maya and Dominic stood on the site of the future waterfront development. Construction hadn't started yet. It was just an empty lot facing the harbor, but Maya could see it all in her mind, the buildings rising up, the way light would dance off the glass, the spaces where people would build lives and memories. "This is going to be incredible," Dominic said, standing behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist. "We're going to make it incredible. Together." He turned her to face him, his expression serious. "I want you to know something. This project, it's yours. Your vision, your design, your name on every plan. I'm not taking credit for your brilliance anymore." "Dominic, you don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. Because you were right that day in my office. I've been so afraid of losing control that I forgot how to share success. But watching you shine, Maya, it doesn't diminish me. It makes me prouder than anything I've ever built on my own." Tears pricked at Maya's eyes. "How did I get so lucky? I'm the lucky one." He kissed her softly. "You saw something in me worth waiting 3 years for. You believed I could be better than the cold businessman everyone else sees. You gave me a chance to prove it. And have you? Proven it? Dominic smiled, that genuine smile that transformed his entire face. I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying. As the sun set over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Maya realized that some things were worth waiting for. Some people were worth the patience, the hoping, the moments of doubt. Because when they finally looked up and saw you, really saw you, it was like the whole world shifted into focus. And everything that came before, all the invisible years, suddenly made sense. They were just preparation for this moment, this partnership, this love that felt like coming home.